So a lot of people who are on the road, whether full-time or part-time, find that it's necessary to still earn an income to be able to work each month, or at least enough months out of the year to keep things afloat. Now, that's true of those who are like myself, who are younger, but it's also true of even many people who are retired or who are on disability or something. They may still need to work part-time to supplement because they just don't have enough to go around every month. So in the last video, we looked at some popular work camping jobs, things like Campground Hosting and the sugar beet harvest up north in the plains, and Amazon Camper Force. In the video before that, we looked at freelancing things, which is actually what I do. So in this video, we're going to talk about some alternatives to popular work camping gigs and to freelancing, because some of those different jobs are not going to work for everyone. Just like the popular work camping jobs don't work out for me, freelancing does, but for other people, neither one of those may. So look at some alternatives to those things, some other ways you can earn an income on the road. So it's worth noting, this is not like a comprehensive video on every possible option, because that just wouldn't be possible. There's many options for nomads, options of jobs for nomads that are alternatives to the popular work camping jobs, and that list grows every year as companies are looking to more and more outsource, and more employees are interested in not being locked into a traditional 9-to-5. So the options continue to grow year by year. But what I'm trying to do is hopefully to sort of prime the pump, if you will, and give you some ideas that'll get you going in the right direction if you're saying, hey, I want to get on the road and I'm just not sure how to pull this off. This is also going to cover basically general type work as opposed to super specialized stuff. If you're a writer like I was when I got on the road, it's pretty easy to figure out how to transition that into freelance. If you're a computer programmer, or if you work in a specialty healthcare position, there's lots of things that you can do right within the field you're already in, and you're probably familiar with those things already. So this is more general for people who don't work in an industry that gives them a built-in way to transition into work on the road, or for those who just want to make a change because they're tired of the job they've been doing. It's one of the first and best ways to get going with alternative temporary work, seasonal jobs, whatever have you, on the road, is through traditional temporary employment agencies. I've done this myself. It works. It can be hit and miss, depending on what they got available. So when the economy's roaring along good, they'll have a lot more openings than when it's not. And different agencies specialize in different types of work. So you may end up at one only has like manual labor, and another one has more skilled jobs available. If you got, this is an option that can make you some money, and you're not under any obligation to stay for a long time. You can go in for work for days or weeks or months, whatever you want to do, and then leave when you're done. So that's going to be a viable option. I have gotten decent paying jobs through temp agencies too, so it's not just actually you may make more money through a traditional temp agency than you will through those work camping jobs, so something to keep in mind. But that is an option, just to go to the town you want to get to. You can usually apply online to start the application process, get in touch with them. You may have to stay on top of them if they don't have work the day you're looking for, and keep calling back looking for work, but they'll get you placed and you can make some money. And so that's an option, and they have all different types of jobs available, and it varies, depending on the region you're in and the type of agency, but many jobs available for those who are looking for alternatives but just don't want to be tied down to a regular steady job. Another great option these days is online classifieds. Craigslist is a fantastic resource, particularly in bigger cities. Facebook, a lot of those towns now, cities or towns will have, even neighborhoods in bigger cities will have their own Facebook classified groups, and jobs get posted on there. And when I say jobs in this context of both Craigslist and Facebook and related things, I'm talking about, yes, sometimes permanent regular jobs, but also short-term gigs. So that can be an option to keep an eye on those things, because you can find all manner of temporary work. Craigslist actually even has a section for gigs that can be helpful. And some of those are just a couple hours or one day, but others may be longer, so it's worth following those things. You may find something good in those. Again, I have found things through there, and you keep an eye on the regular listings as well, the regular job listings on Craigslist or whatever, and just you search with keywords like seasonal or temporary or short-term, whatever. You'll find listings for things that are short-term jobs that don't have to last a long time, and so that can give you an alternative again to the traditional way of doing things. Let you pick where you want to be rather than where seasonal jobs happens to be offered, which is one of my problems. I don't always line up with where I want to be. Another great resource is specialty job sites that cater to nomads or nomadic people. One option is Coolworks. It's at coolworks.com, and I'll throw links to all these in the description for you as well. But Coolworks has lots of jobs at national parks and state parks and private resorts and the like. It ranges from hospitality to maintenance to management, so there's everything along the way. A lot of them are sort of geared towards younger people who are single. They provide, instead of providing RV parking, they provide dorm housing. That may be okay for some of you, depending on your age and your relationship status, but for others that might not work so well. You can always contact them and see what you can negotiate, though. I mean, it's worth a try. They do have, in Coolworks, there's a section for older and bolder, I believe they call it, and that kind of targets jobs that are for more mature folks like me or some of you, and those may have RV sites or have different options that way. So, but again, lots of jobs all across, and at least gives you an indication of some the companies that are hiring. You can follow up from there. You can even see what else is available. Maybe you can find a position that'll work for you, one of them. But a lot of them are for basically single people there, but not all. So. The Caretaker Gazette is an interesting publication. That is a newsletter that comes out that lists caretaking jobs at properties around the world, actually. And so some of them you could use your van and stay in your van. Others provide housing. It just depends on the listing. But if you're looking at doing kind of house sitting or caretaking work, sometimes it's taking care of animals, sometimes not. Sometimes it's just being around the property. Sometimes it's a light maintenance. It all just depends on the job and what they feel they need. But then they can range from really short term to longer term things. So a great way to be able to travel around the world. Sort of like a house sitting thing, basically, with some distinct differences in terms of what's required of you. But that could be something you might want to look at. And they have, a lot of different listings, like I said, all around the world, so you can find something anywhere you want to go. Another one that's a big name in the RV and nomad industry and van dwelling community is Work Camper News. Like the Caretaker Gazette, Work Camper News is a paid membership subscription, but it does give you access to a lot of listings. Work Camper News focuses on things that are probably what most of you think of when you think about work camping jobs. Kind of jobs where you often will trade a site or a place to park in exchange, possibly utilities, in exchange for a certain number of hours of work, and then get paid beyond that. I would really encourage you, if you're looking at any of these kind of things, to try and find jobs that provide free camping or free parking areas, and then pay you for all of your work rather than expecting you to work 15 or 20 hours a week and then get minimum wage after that, because that's just not going to add up very fast. Unless it's somewhere you really want to go and you don't need the money too bad, you can get by on the very limited income, and it's somewhere you want to go anyways, maybe it's okay. But as a general rule, if you're looking for a job, try and stay away from those and stick to the ones that are actually going to pay you a fair wage. If you have to do one, look at it as doing it for a season to build up some, the reference, and then find something better next time. But you don't want to get stuck in that trap of working half your week just for a place to park your van. And then working for a minimum wage after that. That's just not how you're going to be able to get ahead financially and develop any security for yourself. There are some interesting niche jobs I thought I'd mention that you may not have heard of, but that they work really well for some people. There are oil field gatekeeper jobs, for example, where usually they want a couple for that. You bring in your RV and park, and you basically man the gatehouse. kind of like a super light security basically, but you're running it up. Gatehouse and logging in trucks that are coming and going. So they usually want a couple because somebody has to be there 24/7 for the duration of your contract. So if you have to go into town for groceries, somebody needs to be there still. And for that reason, sometimes it doesn't work out for people. They don't feel like it's a very good gig. But for some people, it works out really well. You make good money. You can make a lot of money in a fairly short period of time, and you just park your rig there, so you're there, you know. Another interesting option that some people do that works well for nomads is a poker dealer for the tournaments. This isn't like a regular full-time casino job, but rather working tournaments where they need like so many dealers that they can't supply them from the local economy, so they need to hire a whole bunch of extra people. So you could go place to place. You may or may not be able to live in a van doing that or an RV. It just depends on where the tournaments are being hosted. If there's camping going to be available for you. That would not be personality-wise, that wouldn't work well for me, but for some people who can handle that environment and the excitement and stuff, that could work really well, and it's a way you can make some decent money and only work a few months out of the year. So, other jobs like you can work at amusement parks is a big one in the Midwest. I believe Adventureland's the name of it. They hire a lot of people. For nomads who bring in and come and camp on site there. So that's, there are things like that, and just local companies that have to amp up hiring. And you see that in like Cape Cod and Nantucket and some of the islands out east. Anywhere there's a big tourist area, they often have to hire a lot of people. So, which kind of brings us into the next point. If all these other things are striking out for you, or you're just not sure still. Tourist towns. You can't go wrong going to a tourist town if you're just looking for work. You go somewhere that has a massive influx of tourists every season, each year, and they just don't have enough people in the local economy to hire. So everybody's looking for help. Quartzsite's an example right now. I was down there before I ran out to Wyoming where I'm recording this. Quartzsite, man, it's only a few thousand people in the town year round, and you can get up to 1 million people coming in RVs in the winter over the course of a month or two. So everything is crazy. There's vendors everywhere, and nobody can hire enough help because there aren't enough people in Quartzsite to work. So everybody's hiring. And there's other towns like that, Jackson Hole here in Wyoming, for example, or like I said, I know people have worked in Nantucket out in Massachusetts, because the same thing, you make crazy amount of money in all these places because you can work all the hours you want and you get a good wage, and you just work all you can for the summer or for the winter, whatever it is, bank as much as you can and get out of there. The catch with some of them now, like Quartzsite, wages tend to be low. Everybody's hired, but wages don't tend to be so high, where they are higher in other places. So you'll have to look at that. So all the businesses there need help in these tourist towns. That's pretty typical of tourist towns all over the place. Check on camping availability, though, or where you're going to be able to park and stay, if at all possible, before you get there, because that can be a real problem. If you have to pay a small fortune to camp, or you just can't find a place to camp and there's no housing available. That is a big problem in many of these tourist areas. Boomtowns is another place you can always find work when you just do your homework on where it's booming. For example, several years ago, before the oil and gas collapse, eastern Montana and North Dakota was just insane. I worked over there in Sydney, Montana for a year, and not in the oil field itself, but in a hotel doing hotel maintenance. Every company, I'm not exaggerating, every company in town was hiring. They could not get people. Wages were several dollars an hour, at least higher than over in the big city in Billings, and you worked all the overtime you could handle or all that you wanted. So it was a good opportunity to make a lot of money. The catch is housing costs were insane. At the time, it was up to like $1,400-1,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Everybody had waiting lists. I had a housing solution available to me. That's why I was able to do it. You could camp during the summer there, but you could not camp during the summer. You could not do it during the winter. It's brutal. Winter temperatures. We'd have days that were minus 40 for a high during the daytime, and the wind was blowing top of that. It's just brutal. So you wouldn't be able to, even literally, I'm not exaggerating when I say that people who are in RVs over there, they'd have their propane tanks freeze up. The propane lines would freeze because it was so insanely cold. So that's a problem with that. So you got to make sure that whether it's boom towns or tourist towns, make sure you got somewhere you can stay when you get there, or at least make sure the weather's going to be conducive. You can kind of wing it a little bit until you figure something out, because it can be a problem. But if all else fails, like I said, you go to a tourist town or a boom town and bring a stack of resumes, or just bring around with your pen and start filling out applications, and you're going to get a job in no time, because they can't hire enough people. So, in conclusion, there's many options for jobs for nomads. It really just comes down to depending on where you're willing to go location-wise, when you can be there, what kind of skills and interests you have. There's just lots of options, though. Lots of different styles of work you can do. Specialty job websites are a great place to start your search. Things like Coolworks or Caretaker Gazette or Working Hour News. And then, you can just go to a tourist town or a boom town if you want, because there's going to be work there. Everybody's going to be hiring, and you can work your way up. If you just get a job, and, you start getting the money coming in, then you can find a better job and, work your way up. And some of the rules of having to stay for a year or two, like you might run into the real world, don't apply, because they still can't find anybody. And you're already there working. That makes you desirable to other employers, so you can make more money and move your way up real quickly. Wages are often low in a lot of these tourist areas, though, so be aware of that. Make sure it's going to make sense for you, if at all possible. I know sometimes you have to do what you have to do for a while, but try to make sure it's going to make sense for you, and choose the ones that are going to pay you well enough that you can work through the season and bank some money, so you can take some time off to get to your next gig and figure out what you're doing next. So that's it for this video. The next video, we're going to talk about micro businesses for nomads, how that can be an alternative. It's a little bit different than freelancing, but similar. So we'll talk about that in the next video. Hope this was helpful. In the meantime, like I said, I can't cover every single possible job that people could do as nomads. So just kind of trying to hit some highlights to give you some ideas that'll get you going, and some resources to get you going. Check the description for links to those sites I was mentioning. If you want to learn more, and otherwise we'll get into it as soon as possible. This was supposed to be like run one a week, and that's been running a little behind, so that hasn't quite happened. But we'll get this out, and next one, like I said, will be about micro businesses. So meanwhile, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.